for me, one of the limitations of the way that we approach romantic relationships, as I was saying earlier, is this whole idea of, oh, if we have connection, if we have chemistry, everything is going to be okay. Because I see this being the downfall of many relationships, clients and friends who keep saying, oh, but we had such great connection. It was amazing. Our relationship was beautiful in the beginning. But there is a point, I think, when having too much chemistry really prevents you from digging into the other sides of a relationship, the friendship, the attachment, the what do we have in common when this chemistry is going to disappear? Because we all know that it's not going to last forever at that huge level that we experience in the beginning.
Welcome to the Asian Dating Podcast. I am your host, May Bugenhagen. I help single women just like you go from frustrated with dating to having a positive, unfair advantage with your dating strategy. So no matter if you're very experienced with dating, not very experienced with dating, and you need some help, I am here to help you. And today I have a very special guest. Valentina Tudose is a Hong Kong-based dating, sex, and relationship coach and clinical hypnotherapist passionate about helping women create the happiest, most empowered version of themselves. She supports her clients in all stages of romantic relationships, focusing on self-love and deep healing of relationship issues. She is also a popular TEDx speaker and loves to host retreats. And of course, I will include all of the links to contact her and all that in the show notes. But welcome to the show today, Valentina. How are you?
Hello, May. Thank you for having me. I'm very, very well. I'm very happy to be here.
I know it's like 6 o'clock my time and 8 a.m. your time, but you look fabulous as usual. And I love the green and the red hair and how we match today. So all this is fun. But tell me how you got started. I mean, what does it mean to be a dating, sex, and relationship coach? Like, do people come to you because they have questions about sex and dating, or sex and relationship, or what? Tell us what your title is and what do you do to help the people in Hong Kong?
The way I like to explain this to people who've never heard of relationship coaching is to say that I am like a personal trainer for your heart. So whatever your goal is in relationship terms, if you want to run a marathon, if you want to get really good at relationship fitness, if you have a particular goal that you want to reach in any of those areas, whether you're single and trying to date and obviously find someone that you want to spend the rest of your life with, or if you want to enhance your sex life, or you already have found your happily ever after, so to speak, but you're trying to figure out how to make that work, well, I'm there for you. That's kind of my little catchphrase to people, always here for you. And I really believe in supporting my clients really from the age of 16, 17, when they engage in the first experiences of dating that for me are so formative and can really either be very, very good and set you up for a great romantic life, or rather traumatic and set you up for failure, all the way to 70, when what we're really looking for, I guess, is more companionship than romance and sex. But yeah, I guess the entry point can be anything around the areas that I mentioned. It can either be, how do I get the man or the woman? How do I keep them? How do I make them happy? How do I repair something that maybe has broken because, I don't know, lack of skills, distraction, and so on? And also, how do we rebuild our relationship in case of infidelity or separation or something like that? So I guess the entry points into working with me are different, which is why my approach is to be very client focused, as in I personalize all the work that I do with my clients. I'm not a one size fit all kind of coach. And I really see myself as someone who's guiding my clients on a journey to happiness.
And do you work mostly with men or women? And are they Asian women or Asian men?
I focus primarily on women. Because originally I was inspired to start this work, to qualify as a dating coach, because I was seeing all these beautiful, powerful, successful women around me who for some reason were not successful at finding the one. And I realized that maybe it wasn't because there were no men out there, because clearly, there are as many men here as there are anywhere else. So Hong Kong is not some sort of women's society where you have to catch a guy in a street corner and literally corner him. You've been here, you've lived here, so you know that there is no real imbalance in gender availability, but it's a mindset. So I realized that it cannot be because there are no men. So it had to be something else. During my 10-year career as a dating and relationship coach, I realized that not just single women needed help, because once I got my clients to find the man of their dreams, then they realized that, oh, all of these skills that you've taught me that I now have to get the guy, I'm not going to use them again because I have a man that I want to be with. So now what do I do with him? Can you teach me how to make this relationship work? And I always laugh about it. My company is called Happy Ever After, but I laugh about it because I think we've never really been told in fairy tales and movies how do they make the happily ever after work forever, right? There is no real instruction manual around that. And I think a lot of people struggle with that part. So let's say the ethnicity or the background of my clients really is very, very broad. As you know, Hong Kong is a very international city. We have people here from every continent, pretty much every country in the world. So as long as they speak English, I work with them. Even though I've been here 20 years, I still do not speak Cantonese. So I'm kind of positioning myself out of a very big market. But I am very happy with the diversity of my clients, because that really helps me understand a great deal about the different cultural implications on relationships, like where we grew up, how we were raised, what sort of mindsets the society and our family has programmed in our mind. That really plays a big interest. And you mentioned in my intro that I also do hypnotherapy. I combine the subconscious awareness of one's background and upbringing with conscious coaching about what's happening in the now, to provide my clients with a path that is much clearer and much more actionable for their future. I hope it makes sense.
It does. So would you say the Asian women that you work with in Hong Kong who speaks English and they come to you, let's say in their 20s and 30s, what are some of the main things that you find that they need to work on to find somebody or to date somebody that they hope they would have a future with?
I think that there are two areas where in my last 10 years of working with a lot of Asian women sort of come up as a theme. One of them is that when Asian girls grow up, because of the rather, let's say, traditional mindset of parenting around here, typically parents do not encourage teenage girls to go out dating and to practice their dating skills. So they're typically told, you focus on school, you focus on getting good grades and results. Boys are bad, dating isn't for you. You can do that after you graduate from uni. So that's setting them up for professional success, I think, which is why there are so many amazingly successful women in Asia that are powerful CEOs, business owners, and so on. So admirable qualities, right? But then something shifts the moment they graduate from university and they've achieved everything that their parents have told them, you got to be like this. Suddenly, within a space of maybe 2 or 3 years, they are expected to be married with children. And I think that really essentially sets a lot of these women up for failure, because when you're approaching something that you have literally zero experience with, I work with women who literally, they see a man they like, and their one desire is to hide, to run. Like literally, I cannot deal with this, the whole emotion. In fact, this morning I woke up to, I don't know how many messages from a client that I'm coaching right now, who's early 30s, just started dating someone. And literally, there's no exclusivity. They met like 4 weeks ago, just to give you an example, because maybe examples make the story a little bit more powerful. So they met 4 weeks ago, met a few times. She really has avoidant attachment style. So the moment she hits any sort of discomfort in this, let's say, situationship, because that I can't really call it a relationship, she wants to run away. And last night I was out and I was receiving these messages saying, oh my God, after I spent a wonderful weekend with this person, we bumped into each other at a social event and he's with another girl. I want to run. I'm cutting it all off right now. I can't do this. This is too much emotion for me. And this is, I think, a result of the fact that in her 30s, she has not really had a lot of positive relationships. So the moment something happens that is not aligned with her desires, her reaction is cut this off, which honestly I can only put to this lack of experience. So her inability to regulate her emotions about this and her tendency to just disappear, because she literally wants to book tickets to get away from Hong Kong. It's kind of that extreme. That is just one example of how I feel these cultural aspects of not being allowed to practice dating, and two, being put under pressure the moment you, let's say, graduate to the next phase of expectations, really leaves a lot of women at a loss as to how they can meet their parents' expectations. And I don't know if people in the United States have heard of the concept of having a Asian tiger mom. Usually the style of parenthood in Asia is rather tough love. That's kind of how I would call it. There's very little encouragement. There's very little obvious and overt signs of approval. It's very much conditional. Like, if you do this, if you do this, if you do this, I will accept you and I will love you. Like, if you're really successful at school, if you stay away from boys, if you get a good career and a good, let's say, professional path ahead of you, you're fine. But then once they do all of this, they realize that, oh, okay, now that I'm, in a good position at work, I make good money. Now you're telling me there's something wrong with me again because now I don't have a man and I can't find the man. So I think there's a lot of pressure on my Asian clients to meet other people's expectations, which I guess is not just about Asians, but it's quite prevalent here.
So I thought that story was about me. I thought I was just supposed to get good grades, study hard, go to college, get a great job. And then like a few years later, my parents are like, oh, where are the grandkids? I'm like, what? I didn't even know I was allowed to date. So you're saying that that is a very common theme in the Asian women, in the Chinese women in Hong Kong.
Still now, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
so the women who come to you, they say, you know what, I need some more experience, I need some guidance. And then they actually want you to tell them and guide them on what to do. Are they very open about it? Or are they, this is something totally out there that it gets in their uncomfortable, out of their comfort zone? Like, does it bother them to practice what you tell them to do?
Well, I would say that it's not the most comfortable thing they've ever done, because like everything that you do for the first time, it's going to be uncomfortable. Yeah. But as I like to say, if there's no discomfort, there is no growth. This is a signal. The discomfort that you're experiencing right now is a signal for your brain that you're learning. So I try to reassure them that these growing pains that we're going through together, which is why I'm so hands-on with my clients and I'm always responding to their panicky crisis texts and all of that. It's because I know that if you have to do this all by yourself and you don't have anyone to confide in, because you can't really talk to your parents about these struggles, and sometimes your friends are already married or have never been through this experience, they literally don't have anyone to turn to. So my approach is very much, let's work on what works for you and what level of discomfort are you willing to tolerate. And of course, if someone is so shy that they can't even put themselves out in public, or they have this idea that every man they see is their Mr. Right. Like I've literally had a client a few years ago in the beginning who cried when I told her that actually no, you are the one who's choosing. You are supposed to meet people and look at them, and like basically you're hiring for this job. That's how I like to position it to these clients, because they're so professionally oriented, right? So they kind of know the ropes of being at work, because a lot of them are very successful. I've worked with CEOs, I've worked with directors of banks and all these kind of very successful women, but somehow when it comes to dating, they're like little girls. Mm-hmm. And ladies, I do not say that to diminish your amazingness, but to say that the lack of experience in this field literally makes them act like a teenager. So it's almost like I'm their mentor, that I'm there to hold their hand, that so that they don't feel alone in this journey. And it's not easy, but when they're successful, it's amazing.
Yeah. What is, in your opinion, the number one relationship skill you would want everyone to get good at?
Especially for Asian women.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge they are having is actually to learn to let go of the desired outcome, to not get so attached to the story that they tell themselves about a relationship. And
give me an example.
Think this is, well, even the client that I mentioned this morning, right? She's only met this person maybe 5-6 times. And, for me, when you're experienced, you know that it takes a lot longer to get to know a person. You even though you have high chemistry and you're really attracted, and maybe they say all the right things, and you feel this incredible connection, it's natural, right, to imagine that this is it. This is what Hollywood told me is going to happen. Boy meets girl, we're going to hang out, we're going to spend every waking moment together, and that's it, we're done, happily ever after. So naturally, and I know this is how we're wired, right? Women in particular, we're wired for connection, for deep heart-to-heart conversations and feeling safe and all of that. But I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of women get so caught up in the chemistry of the moment, in the I wouldn't say even in the reality of who that person was, but more their idealized version of this person, which I really believe we create in our head. I don't believe we fall in love with people. I believe we fall in love with the image that we create of them. So when you want something so much, and when you've dreamed about this all your life, it's almost like every person is like one of those cardboard cutouts that you see at the playground, or I don't know, in carnivals or something like this, where people just put their face in a body of, I don't know, some muscular guy, right? So I feel that sometimes this is how this system operates in our brain. We want something so much. We have this ideal Prince Charming version of someone, and then we kind of fit anybody in there that seems to be connecting with us. So this idea of connection, of course, connection is beautiful, but we can have a connection with 1,000 people, because it's lust. It's just like, okay, our bodies somehow recognize the other person as a potential biological match, but it does not make someone Mr. Right. There's a difference between Mr. Right now and Mr. Right. That's what I'm trying to tell these ladies. So for me, what I keep giving them all sorts of different, let's say, tools on, is how to stop their imagination going into the wedding day and what kind of dress they're going to wear, or how they're going to have children together and live happily ever after, because it takes a while to get to the point of saying, yes, this person is my forever.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think that you would help them with a lot of the tools in your toolbox. And how do you get your clients to be more successful at dating once they change their mindset, and once they're ready for adventure, and once they're ready to step out of the box?
My favorite, let's say, framework that I give to them is, first of all, to say that everyone comes into our life to teach us something. So there is no wasted connection. Every single person that you meet in your life that crosses your path, even if it's for one night, even if it's for a week, a month, a year, and it's not your forever partner, is there to teach you a lesson. I believe in this whole metaphysical aspect of life where we choose the experiences that we want to have before we incarnate. As a clinical hypnotherapist, I've seen 20 of my past lives. So I've got a rather more spiritual view on this, which some clients connect with, and other clients are like, no, don't tell me any of that. I don't believe in soulmates and all of that, which is fine for me. But I believe that still every person that comes into our life can teach us a lesson if we are willing to do it. And ultimately, also on this, let's say, metaphysical level, I believe that everyone comes into our life to teach us how to love, and in particular, how to love ourselves, so that we can approach dating and relationships from this perspective that says, my life is wonderful, it's perfect, is everything that I want and need in my life, it's there. If I'm looking for a partner, it's like the cherry on the cake, just a beautiful addition that is not necessary, but is wanted to make this life more beautiful, worth sharing, so we can be on an adventure together, as opposed to needing someone to complete me because there's something missing. So the lesson in every experience is see what this person is teaching you about yourself, about how you are not loving yourself. So the concept of relationships being mirrors is one of my favorite ways of putting it to them, to say, look, if you're in a relationship with someone who maybe doesn't prioritize you, of course, we want to be prioritized, right? We want to be special, we want to be chosen. If a person that you like, that you choose, isn't putting you first, ask yourself, how am I not putting myself first? If I want to be a priority, am I my own priority? Or do I wait for them to make time for me in their life? Which means that I put them, their needs, their interests, their calendar first, and I put myself second. If that is the case, we do work on this whole reprioritizing. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be adjusting to your, Mr. Right Now or Miss Right Now, if it happens to be, to their schedule, to their life, because everyone has a life and that's okay. But if you're the only one adjusting, and if they live their life without any consideration for where you are and what you need, then to me, this is a sign that you are not prioritizing yourself. So I use this, let's say, perspective shift to give them an idea of boundaries, of how you want to be loved, and having standards that are guaranteeing your success. And if someone is not able to meet your needs and your standards, unfortunately, this is the lesson that you have to learn from them.
So when you first teach a woman the dating strategy or relationship strategy, what are like 5 things you go over in the first month?
So let's say in broad terms, like I said, I personalize programs for my clients, but in broad terms, I start with their belief systems. Okay. What do they believe is possible? What do they believe is desirable? What is their inner critic saying to them in the background? How are they stopping themselves from going after what they want, and so on? So I spend maybe about 4 sessions on this in various ways, working with the conscious awareness of what they're doing, looking at their behavior, looking at their relationship patterns, like what has happened for them in previous relationships, which obviously impacts them in the way they approach dating today, and so on. Just to give them this deep knowledge of themselves, to understand, oh, this is why I keep attracting the same kind of person, or this is why this keeps happening to me. And I say to them, any pattern that repeats means a lesson that has not been learned. So anything that happens again, we stop, we analyze, we look at what I call my success formula: awareness plus choice plus action equals change. We make changes, as in new actions and new choices, and then we test. It's kind of a reiteration strategy. Let's see what's working, what's not working. Let's try a new strategy. What are you fully backing? Like, what are you willing to do? If what I'm suggesting to you and we agree is not working for you because it's giving you too much discomfort, too much stress, obviously I don't want to stress you out. I want to help you. I'm not a teacher. I'm not your mother. So once we get to a point where the person has a high degree of awareness of how their past is actually impacting their present and therefore the future, we start working a little bit more on their standards. So by standards, I mean the relationship fundamentals. What are my requirements? What have my past relationships taught me about what must be present for me in a relationship? What sort of behaviors and situations I cannot tolerate? We spend a lot of time of identifying their needs. Like, what is it that I need? I need to be prioritized. I need, I have anxious attachment style. I work a lot with attachment styles and all these beautiful psychological discoveries that have luckily been added to our life as coaches, because I think they're very good tools. If someone is aware that it's their anxiety talking, then their fear of abandonment or their fear of rejection, then we can operate on a very different level than just reacting to things. So we talk a lot about that, giving them all sorts of tests, love language tests, attachment style tests, just to give them this awareness, to empower them to decide where they want to be. And once we clarify a lot more about this whole thing that I call their ultimate relationship codex, which involves understanding of my own belief systems, a vision for my ideal relationship, understanding the place that my future partner will play in my life, and really the standards that must be met for me to be happy in a relationship, to get my happily ever after, right? Then we can start thinking of their partner. So a lot of people think that, I come to you, we do a few things, and then we're going to start figuring out how am I going to get the guy, or how am I going to meet my future partner. But to me, I'd like to pace them a little bit and to say, look, if you date right now, I'm not saying don't date, because of course there are a lot of good opportunities to practice a bunch of skills if you go on dates, but don't date to commitment. Like, really think of this as like an internship. If what we're doing here is we're creating your dream job, the possibility for you to have this amazing experience in your life, we need to practice. Since you've not practiced during your early years, we need to do that now. So I kind of hold their hand during that process so that they can determine, okay, this is what it looks like if I'm not being prioritized. This is what it looks like if a person cannot meet my emotional needs to make me feel safe and to make me feel wanted and so on. So it's, for each person, there is a time of trial and error, but I try to minimize the impact of the errors so that they don't take it personally. They don't feel like they're going through a lot of breakups during this time. And I just make it fun. For me, fun is a huge value in my coaching.
When they're out there meeting people and dating, you're telling them date as if you're an intern at a job, don't date for commitment right now. So you almost put that off the table so they're not shooting for that as a goal, and then it takes less pressure on them.
Yes, very much. I call it recreational dating. So we're going out there to date for fun. You're not looking at everyone that you meet as your potential future partner. You're looking at everyone as someone who's really teaching you what you need to know about yourself, so that when we feel comfortable enough, we graduate to committed dating, as in every person that you're meeting is going to be properly screened, made sure that they meet your basic criteria for a relationship, and then you just go into testing phase of testing of what you know about them being the truth, right? Because in the beginning, we always wear a mask sometimes. We don't really truly fully reveal who we are.
Yeah. So you are a dating, sex, and relationship coach. What are some sex questions people ask you?
Starting with how do I masturbate? Like, what does it look like? Because I've never done it. I mean, as you can imagine, in some Asian cultures, conversations about sex are not very common. Education about sex is very basic. if present at all, especially maybe women in my generation in their 40s and 50s, this was not done. But I think for a lot of my clients is about how do I maintain my sexual desire, as in what if I've been in a relationship for a while and it's kind of fizzled out and I love my partner. Again, they're like the two different sides of my business. If I'm dealing with a single woman, usually the conversation around sex are about, okay, how do I please my partner? What to do if, should I have sex on a first date? What to do the next morning if I had sex on the first date? Should I continue sexting with the person before I met them? And all of these conversations that really, to me, sex is a fundamental, I think for everyone really who is in this business, we understand the importance of sex. And I call it the glue that keeps your relationship together or brings you two together. If the sex is good, then there is more chance for you to create a deeper, long-lasting connection. But if you just go in with the sex, you basically miss the opportunity to connect deeper. So for my single clients, is really more about how to be better, how to be more comfortable with myself. Of course, if you've not had a lot of sexual experiences, there are a lot of limiting beliefs about, oh my God, what if I get too wet? What if I don't get wet enough? What if I don't know what to do? What if, things are going in a way that makes me uncomfortable? How do I express my boundaries around this? Maybe this guy that I slept with slapped me last time I had sex with him. What do I do with that? So I talk a lot about boundaries and consent. Even in relationships, obviously, just because someone is your boyfriend or husband doesn't mean that they can do anything they want with it. And surprisingly, this is something that a lot of women are not aware of. And then for couples, I think one of the, let's say, more surprising aspects of sex coaching is that, possibly contrary to popular beliefs, it is women who want more sex than men in relationships. I guess it's not, for me, it's not really a surprise, because I know men thrive on variety and novelty, and women thrive on comfort and safety. So in a relationship where you feel safe and comfortable, of course you would want more sex, because you have that the right ingredients for desire. Whereas as male desire, the way that I understand it, is much more driven by variety and novelty and new things to do. The safety and comfort of the relationship kind of kills the passion a little bit. So what I work with my clients on is how to navigate the male and female sexuality, and how to meet somewhere in the middle, so that your sexual experience is not following some sort of set expectations of times you have sex a week, or I don't know how many times you switch positions or anything crazy like that. And probably the two biggest things that I need to share with my clients to give them truly, blow their mind as they tell me, is to say, look, sex is not about orgasm. Sex is not about penetration. Sex is about connection. So also for women, recently, actually, I went to the wedding of a former client, and this client had referred several of our friends to me. And one time we did a very late night kind of private sex class, and 3 of these women were married and 2 of them were single. And at this wedding, I saw one of the married women who were part of that workshop that I did, and she said, "Oh my God, you changed my life." And I said, "Oh, how? I don't even know what I did. What did I do?" She said, "Well, you told me that my orgasm is my responsibility. So that if I sit there waiting for someone else to give me an orgasm and hoping that they figure out how to do it, I will be waiting until I get old." And I said, "Well, yeah, that's my perception, that you need to first allow it. And 2, if your partner doesn't know how to do it, know how to do it for yourself and teach your partner how to do it." And she said, "Oh no, you absolutely, you hit the mark there. You changed my life." So I think sometimes understanding what is that one thing that is going to shift a person's perspective on how they approach the particular problem that they're experiencing in their life can truly change the whole dynamic.
I know you talk about the 3 C's of successful relationships. What are the 3 C's?
um, well, it's chemistry, it's compatibility, and communication. And I put a lot of emphasis on the second and the third, because everyone can get chemistry very easily, right? But for me, one of the limitations of the way that we approach romantic relationships, as I was saying earlier, is this whole idea of, oh, if we have connection, if we have chemistry, everything is going to be okay. Because I see this being the downfall of many relationships, clients and friends who keep saying, oh, but we had such great connection. It was amazing. Our relationship was beautiful in the beginning. But there is a point, I think, when having too much chemistry really prevents you from digging into the other sides of a relationship, the friendship, the attachment, the what do we have in common when this chemistry is going to disappear? Because we all know that it's not going to last forever at that huge level that we experience in the beginning. So what I work with my clients as they go through the, let's say, later stages of singles coaching, or when I actually do premarital coaching, commitment coaching, especially for the clients that have been through the process. They've now, let's say, met someone and they figure out that this being in a relationship is completely different to being single and looking for a relationship. So now they go, oh, how do I do this? How do I discuss money with my boyfriend? We're moving in together. How do I figure out whether, this is going to work? And this is where the second C and the third C comes into play, because being with someone who's going to be your partner forever, your happily ever after, chemistry is obviously not enough. So you need compatibility. Already when I work with a single client, I prime them, or I prepare them for what does it mean? What does compatibility mean? And where I mentioned earlier about the vision, the shared values, and the relationship codex, the requirements and standards that they have, already tells them, this is what I need to be looking for in a partner. And that essentially defines compatibility. And then, of course, you bridge the gap between chemistry and compatibility through communication. So communication is an enabler. A lot of people come to me and said, oh, we have a communication problem. And to me, the communication is not the problem. The lack of communication, or the lack of effective communication, is the problem. Because I think a lot of people say to me, oh, but we talk a lot. We talk a lot about everything. Yes, you talk a lot, but you talk about the same problems on and on and on, and you don't actually resolve any of the ongoing conflicts that are happening, because you don't even realize that if you have a conflict, you're fighting over different needs. So one person needs one thing, the other person needs something else. You think you're fighting over the same thing, but actually you never resolve it because you don't work on what the real problem is.
Yeah, that's true. So important, so important. Before I let you go, Valentina, I hear about the leftover women concept a lot, whether I read it in articles and things like that. Can you touch a little bit on who the leftover women are and what age range, and what does that mean?
Oh, thank you for bringing that up, because I forgot to mention it in the beginning. So we're kind of circling back to the beginning of our conversation, when I was talking about these cultural mindsets that you're not allowed to date, and then you're supposed to date all of a sudden. There is a sort of an ideal period, apparently, which I know where it comes from, but I'll just put that to the side for now, where if a woman hasn't found the partner, the husband, and has not been able to, let's say, end that, or reach the goal of being in a relationship, she somehow is no longer desirable. So there is a term in Chinese and Cantonese that calls these women the leftover women. I guess in the old days they'd be called the spinsters. So in a way, the leftover woman is the new spinster. Essentially a woman who is too old to be of interest to someone. I guess let's say in biology, we know that there is a certain fertile period when a woman is most likely to have children, healthy children, and so on. So possibly that is the explanation that I give myself for that mindset. But ultimately, the leftover women apparently women start to think of themselves as leftover like from the age of 32 onwards. And believe it or not, I've had clients who were virgin, like they've never had relationships, they've never had sex, and they already thought that boat has sailed.
Did you say 30 or 32?
32.
32.
Which to me is, I mean, this is going to be judgmental, but it's crazy to think that at the age of 32, after you've barely dated, you've not really experienced anything, to already write yourself off as undesirable. But a bit of a funny anecdote, this in the beginning of my work as a coach, that used to bring me a lot of, let's say, Chinese, like local clients, because not being Chinese, a lot of these clients thought that that the only available option for them to find a partner is a non-Asian man. So because obviously in the Caucasian culture, there is no concept of, oh, this woman is 32, therefore, she's out of the desirable range. So some of these women were coming to me and saying, hey, you're Western. Do you know any Western men for me? Because I think there's no chance of me meeting an Asian man. No Asian man will want me. They'll want younger girls in their 20s. So you must have the key to their heart. Can you tell me how to date a French man or an American man or an Italian man and so on? Which used to amuse me, but also make me a little bit sad, because I don't know, I don't really connect with this idea of thinking of yourself as a leftover woman at the age when you should be flourishing and loving yourself and giving yourself everything.
Well, that's when you would think in the US, the women should be more open-minded to date, but that's not the case. So maybe when they come to the US, they're like, oh, I'm not going to be a leftover woman here, so I could be pickier here. So I'm going to, have more requirements and things like that. But yeah, that's interesting. I've heard about the leftover women concept or story for many, many years now. I mean, that started many years ago. Like that's been a known thing. So yes, a lot of Asian women in Asia, China, Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, they do like dating American westernized men. So that's where I can help them, I guess. So, but one last thing before I let you go.
I was going to say, sorry to interrupt you, that definitely I see a big collaboration here, because as you know, I don't do matchmaking, simply because I think there are other people who are doing a much better job in it. And I believe that, that whole Chinese proverb that it's better to teach a man how to fish than feed him a fish. So I choose to teach my clients how to fish. But I do get clients who say, oh, just find me a man. I don't care. Now that you've prepared me for testing a relationship, can you just do the screening and the scouting and all this part, and I'll show up and do the testing? So I'm sure that there is some collaboration to be had between us. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead, what you wanted to say.
Yeah, no, I would definitely love to collaborate with you. So any Asian women out there listening to this, please fill out a profile at twoasianmatchmakers.com. But one last thing I wanted to talk about is you mentioned rejection is redirection. How to make the most of Mr. Wrongs to find Mr. Right. Tell me a little bit about that concept.
This is the framework that I sort of mentioned a little bit earlier, in terms of everyone being a lesson, because obviously rejection is such a painful thing. And especially if you've not had a lot of relationship experiences, if it's like your first time you're dating someone and it hasn't worked out for some reason, feeling rejected is literally the worst thing in the world. Breakups are very painful. And because I am very, very passionate of doing breakup recovery coaching, this is kind of the framework for that part of my work, to really take my clients through this whole process, in which I show them how really this relationship is a beautiful gift. It's really a way of looking at life as, oh, there's a barrier here. It doesn't mean that I cannot go forward. It just means that I have to go around, because life is trying to teach me something. It's trying to guide me in a direction where I'm going to find, the one. And I guess the best example is this client that I mentioned I went to the wedding of 2 weeks ago. I met her at a time where her relationship was extremely tumultuous and very, very toxic, I would say. It took a long time for me to support her, or for us to work together to exit that relationship, which was clearly not working for her, helping her through the healing process, only for her to meet someone who's absolutely perfect for her, and seeing her in church with her new partner, and him literally not being able to keep his hands off her, even in front of the priest, which was really sweet and endearing, was the perfect example of how really the universe, God, whatever, was trying to show her, don't go here. This relationship is not going to make you happy. This pain leads you somewhere better. So this path is I think quite difficult to walk alone, like really understanding that this person who I've idealized in my head, and I think they're absolute perfection, even though the signs are clear that they're not, because if they were perfect, they wouldn't put me through so much pain, right? But the understanding that this is not the universe cursing you. This is not some sort of punishment for a horrible thing that you've done in another life, but it's simply a big go left or go right sign that takes you in the right direction. And I found that it really helps my clients get over breakups really, really quickly. In fact, my breakup recovery program is just 6 weeks. And sometimes I do it as a 1-day intensive retreat, like a private retreat for a client. I say, look, if you want to get over this person, spend a day with me. And we'll go through this whole process. I'm going to take you from the morning where you're like sitting here crying, curled up on my sofa, to a woman who is just ready to go out there, not necessarily jump straight into dating, but who finds this new, stronger version of herself, who has integrated these lessons from this experience and now is ready to embark on a new path. So this is one of the most powerful concepts that I've applied in my work, and I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, when they accept all that and understand it and redirect it, as the title says, that they really feel like, okay, there was a reason for that. And what am I learning from that experience? And just gives them also a hand-holding process for you to help them get to that breakup and be okay with it, right? Because they're not going to be happy about the breakup. They're still sad and there's a lot of emotions with it. But the fact that they know that they have you in the corner to help them and to kind of be their friend, right? To help them get through this. That's so important. That's awesome.
And their friends love me because they don't have to listen to the whole going round and round and round in relationships. So that's actually a really great source of referrals for me.
That's awesome.
In the sense that, when you have a friend who's going through a breakup, that sometimes people can get stuck in that cycle of denial and anger and bargaining and all of that. And if you've had any friends that keep going back to a toxic ex, you just want them to get out of that horrible, horrible, vicious cycle. So I actually do get a lot of referrals from people who say, can you please help my friend get over this, because this is driving me crazy. But it is, of course, something that I really, really I love working on, even though obviously luckily I'm not such a huge empath that I take on all this energy, because of course in a breakup there is so much negativity and pain, but luckily I know how to deal with that. And apparently I am able to help people recover pretty quickly, so I'm very, very happy about that.
Well, Valentina, thank you so much for your time today. If you have any last parting words for the listeners out there, and just quickly about how they get in touch with you, and I will include all this in the show notes as well.
Yeah, I think my parting words would be really to share my perspective about love, that ultimately everyone is giving you a gift, the gift of their time, the gift of their attention, even if it's fleeting. So approach life and your relationship life with gratitude and compassion, because we don't know what the other person is going through, even if we think they're not giving us what we want. So that's my approach in all my work as well, being grateful for everything that I have. I know sometimes when someone broke your heart, it's hard to be grateful for that experience, but later on you will see how that has benefited you. In terms of finding me, probably I am most active on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Valentina_relationship coach. I'm also on Facebook at Valentina Tudose. Also, if people are interested in learning a little bit about my life story, my TEDx talk, which I did a few years ago, is called Embracing Unconditional Love. And he talks a little bit about my journey through life and what I've learned from my last 19-year relationship. And also on LinkedIn at Valentina Tudose. So I guess all the usual suspects in terms of social media. But thank you. I wanted to thank you so much, speaking of gratitude, for connecting with me and inviting me on your podcast. And this has been a wonderful conversation.
Well, thank you, Valentina. And for ladies out there, please register with me, fill out a profile at 2asianmatchmakers.com. I would love for you to give me your information so I have it. I can set you up. And for men out there, if you're looking to meet a nice Asian woman, I would be very, very honored to help you. So contact me. And for everybody else, thank you very much and see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.